Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We've got the whole squad of 4 here today. Avs off day. We actually get a couple of off day pods this week. It feels like it's been a while since we get to do them on the regular. And the league has provided us with quite a few conversations to have over the next couple of days. So should be a fun time to look around the league. Before I do that, though, Meghan, it's been a minute since you've been on the show. Glad to have you back in front of the camera. I want to start with vibes from the Colorado Avalanche. You were in the locker room after the shootout win the other night. Where are the Avs at right now? Do they feel good about beating some good teams in the NHL? Do they feel like they let one get away against Florida? Where are they at?
I really appreciated the attitude after the Florida game. Devon Toews wrote it off as, we're fine. It was just a one-off. I think that there was absolutely disappointment, but there was also recognition that to be able to pull from behind for a significant amount of that game the way that they did, despite obvious goaltending struggles. Nobody was going to be quick to say that part of it out loud, but I think that's why the vibes in the room, even after the Florida game, were still very good, and why they continued to be good then against Boston. Even Ross Colton at morning skate before Boston, I don't want to say it was a defiant attitude. Like between Toews, it was a one-off, we're fine, and Ross Colton being like, I thought we played pretty well for a good amount of that Florida game. I kind of appreciate that quality in the attitude then, that they're kind of like, we're fine. What are you guys worried about as media, right? And so I appreciated that. I think the vibes are good. Obviously, the whole point of this show is talking about some of the still glaring needs of not only the Avs, but other teams around the league. And so that remains a concern. But getting a great game from Georgiev after the Boston game was another thing that was quietly noticed. Like, I almost thought Georgiev was going to leave because no one had really talked to him post-game. Everybody was talking to Makar and Malinsky, and I thought Georgiev played a great game, so I went over there solo right before he was about to leave and started talking, and then eventually more people came, but he almost snuck out without even being addressed by the media. And he had a really good attitude, too. You can always tell when you catch him after games like that he is feeling good about himself and a little bit of defiance. Like, I try to build confidence every day, not after games that are good, even after the bad ones, too. So I appreciated it, and I think the vibes are good all around.
What's your take on the stick-breaking spree he's been on? I know he's not a big fan of it, so.
I am not a huge fan of it. I don't think Georgiev endorses that behavior even himself. He seemed cautious in how he wanted to talk about it because you knew there was a little bit of guilt. Like, I shouldn't be doing this, essentially. And Jared Bednar corroborates this, too, and leaves it to UC Parkala to address with Georgiev. But it is something, this shouldn't be the standard for Georgiev. He chalks it up to really caring about winning and wanting to perform well, but also recognizes that he needs to rein it in a little bit. I think that a broken stick in a season doesn't totally surprise me, but we've already had a couple, and between hitting Malinsky and now a couple broken sticks, it's different. It's a little too much. He needs to rein it in. And when you look at the position of goaltending, it's so important for goaltenders to be in control of their emotions that this sort of reflects someone who's lost just a little bit of that control. And I think that's why even Georgiev acknowledges it's something he wants to rein in more than it has been this season.
I'll jump in on this one, but I agree. And wanting to win, that's one thing, but part of winning is learning how to control your emotions. If you don't know how to control your emotions, you're not going to win. So it's very simple. This is such a fine line in the National Hockey League between winning and losing, and being a winner, personally as an athlete. Not forget about your team for a second, but I agree with Bednar. Like, I'm on the other team, I'm on the bench. First thing I see is that it's like, boys, we got him. Let's go. Next whistle, snow. A little snow in his face, and he's coming off his injuries, and it's easy to see. I mean, it's not hard when you smack your stick and it goes. I mean, it's not like you're hiding, so it's not like guys didn't see it on the other team. So you gotta stop that. You gotta be control. You gotta be careful with that from now on. Again, we all want to win, so you have to learn how to win too. So that's part of learning how to win and control your emotions. And I just think it's a bad look.
you even look at last night, Swayman shoving Mikko Rantanen after the power play goal. You can see, as media, just watching it, the Avs are in Swayman's head, even last night.
Absolutely.
And he also, though, did rein it in and played very well. And I think that captures the importance of controlling the emotions on either side, because both goaltenders had great performances in net, but they needed to rein it in a little bit.
Yeah, got to be under control at all times. It's funny what a 10-game stretch will do, going from Devon Toews calling out some teammates about if they're really here for the right reasons to it's one loss, who cares?
We're fine. And I think that's why it's important coming from Toews especially.
Definitely a fair point. The Avs are in a bit of an interesting spot right now. You have Miles Wood, who'll be back. He just has an illness, no big deal. But you're now looking at a defense where's Josh Manson at right now? Byram has been put on IR. So the Avs essentially operating without two of their top 4D for the immediate future. Is there confidence in that locker room about the guys that they have, the Caleb Joneses, the Malinskis of the world? Or does it feel like they're just surviving until they get someone back?
Manson for sure, because of the way his play has grown throughout the course of this season and the sort of different thing that he brings to the D-core that Malinsky and Jones don't. But Byram still hasn't found his footing. So it's not to say that his absence isn't missed. That would be quite a misinterpretation of what I'm saying. But they're getting some back-end contributions and puck moving from Malinsky that I think initially he is an adventure every time you watch him. There's some risk involved in watching Malinsky, but there's also some obvious production that has come with him in the lineup that I think if you'd asked me after his first stint how the team felt, there was probably some discomfort. But now I think that there is growing trust. You even see it in the team reactions when they see Malinsky score. I think that they're so much more on board now that they've seen him for a little bit. Even still, though, I think the absence of Manson is definitely felt, and they are, to some extent, just hanging on because those are difficult holes to fill. Like, then you've got some weird pairings. Jack Johnson's still in the mix somewhere, and so somebody's not playing to their strengths when the lineup is shaped like that. And you're also really riding hard on Makar and Toews, and knowing Makar has been dealing with something from training camp onward, you don't love to see it, so you do want that relief to come sooner rather than later. But with Manson, it doesn't feel serious. I know last season we were in such an unknown territory with him. Is he coming back? Is he feeling better? This feels so different. It's day-to-day, lower body. He even tested it out at morning skate. I have every confidence we'll see him return back soon. And even the outlook for Byram is positive. I'm excited then for the opportunity to see what Malinsky does with this chance. And I think it brings up an interesting conversation about waivers with Jones and Ben Myers. Yeah,
I don't think anyone was shocked to see the Avs send Ben Myers down and try and save some of that waiver eligibility. But
yeah,
the other side of the forward side there, Artturi Lehkonen in a full contact sweater now. It sounds like he took quite a bit of contact today. Can the Avs realistically expect that guy back soon? The original timeline was 10 to 12 weeks. This is week 9-ish. Is he going to hit the front end of that estimate?
I think so, and I think it's been trending that way now for a bit because he has seemed ahead of projection early into the process when we first saw him in a red no-contact jersey. He hit the ice as soon as he did, and I think that's why, even though he's not necessarily confirmed for the Toronto game, I think there's a good possibility that he gets in that game. And I don't doubt, too, that there's probably a little bit of getting his legs underneath him, but I think he'll come back pretty strong because I don't think they're taking chances with him coming back prematurely. So I think he's just honestly ahead of schedule.
Good to hear on that front. That's all I had for the Avs. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on over the last little bit?
I don't think so.
All right, let's get into some around the league stuff. Obviously, the big news of yesterday being the trade between Philadelphia and Anaheim. Jamie Drysdale going to Philadelphia for Cutter Gauthier and a second-round pick in 2025. Let me get your initial impressions on this trade before we get into the whole conversation about how and why this played out. Do you think this is a good trade for either team? Do you think it's a good trade for both teams? Where are you at?
It changes for Anaheim a lot, depending on
How? Sure.
well,
Fair enough.
if Cutter Gauthier is a wing or a center, you feel very differently.
Yep.
Because if it's a wing and Jamie Drysdale lives up to the potential, you probably don't feel great about it. If you're Philadelphia and Jamie Drysdale doesn't live up to that potential, there's a pretty good chance you feel bad about it. But you're trading lottery tickets at this point. You know, like it's a really rare deal because you don't see young guys traded like this at this stage of their careers with this kind of pedigree ever.
Yep.
So it's a really, like, funny enough, the last time we might have seen something quite like this was Seth Jones for Ryan Johansson, which you watch Ryjo now and you're like, that was a long time ago. So, you know, it's a really rare deal. And then all the stuff that's come out in the last 24, not even 24 hours, last 12 hours since then, you know, the Flyers front office with a full publicity blitz of like, he didn't want us, we didn't want him. And, you know, really raising questions about why did this dude just ghost an organization for a year?
Yep.
You know, now there's this like, oh, well, they didn't sign him to an ELC and he didn't get his bonus money and they were going to be over the cap. And, you know, what exists is now comes across as very entitled. But I could not help but be reminded of Val Nichushkin in the postseason last year, in that when
The swirling media fracas.
well, just when one of the sides, one of the entities involved is not coming out and talking about it, people will just fill in the blanks.
Yep.
And you saw it happen last year with Nichushkin, where it became this
All of a
Russian
sudden,
mob, Ukrainian nonsense stuff where you were like, what even is this? Like, how did we get here? And now Kevin Hayes is having to, waking up today and having to defend himself. You know, Kevin Hayes' family is getting death threats and stuff. You're like, Kevin Hayes had nothing to do with any of this.
Yep.
But because somebody went on to a thing one time and said, it could be this guy. Like we need a villain. It's like we need and we'll find one. You give us long enough. You don't give us a definitive answer. We'll find one. You look at what happened with the Connor Bedard, Corey Perry stuff earlier this year. We'll just run with whatever at this point.
Yep.
And when one of the sides isn't talking and there's no answer, we'll find one. It doesn't matter if it's ridiculous. It doesn't matter if it's true. We will just decide that this is how it is. Facts have stopped being facts and they've started being something that we choose. And that struck me watching all of this take place. And it reminded me a lot of the Nichushkin playoff stuff, where he didn't come out and the organization didn't come out and say, this is exactly what's happening. There's no transparency from that side. So people filled in blanks. Whereas the Flyers last night came out and were like, here's all the laundry, man. Here it is. It's dirty,
Whatever
it's clean,
you wanna
whatever.
know, yeah.
Here's, from our side of it, here's everything. And the other side of it's not talking. And so and I'm not saying that he has to. He doesn't owe anybody. That is not something that he owes the general public. He is allowed to keep that private and personal. But it is interesting how these stories develop. And something like this is very rare in the NHL.
I think it's interesting, especially because certainly you and I are very pro player.
Yeah.
From a standpoint of, if that guy decided he didn't want to play for that organization, fair enough, right? Like, you don't have a problem with that side of it. It's more of the how he went about it, refusing to meet with their GMs and not showing up at all.
Well, I know there's a lot of people who are, the Eric Lindros thing is getting brought up, which is so dumb.
Completely not relevant, yeah.
A recent Avalanche example of this would have been Drew Hellison.
Yep.
Drew Hellison had told the Avs and said, hey, I'm not sure that I'm ready to sign. I want to turn pro.
And I don't see how I fit
Look
here.
at your
Yeah.
organization. It is stocked with defensemen. So I'm not sure that I have a path forward here. And the Avs said, okay, fair enough. We'll find a home for you. And went and got Josh Manson.
Yep.
On their cup run. Like, used him in a deal. Like, that is a situation where you're like, Drew Helleson, there's communication there.
No bad blood.
Yeah, there's
Sure.
no, like, everybody, like, Drew Helleson makes his decision and says, hey, this is how I am. And the Avs are like, okay, we're going to do what we need to do then. And it was all good. And it doesn't, nobody comes out of that with hurt feelings.
Yep.
It was, there's a reason for it. And that's the communication from the player side creates that, I guess that line of acceptance from everybody involved that says, we know what the score is. We understand what's happening here. And that's to me, that's how this should work.
Yep.
How this went, where certainly, again, because the Flyer side is the only one that's talking, they're like, we tried, and we tried. We couldn't get this guy to meet with us. We couldn't get him to talk with us. We couldn't get him to acknowledge that we exist, whatever. And in that part of this, my biggest question, he's a kid.
Yep.
You know, anybody under the age of 20, 21 years old is a moron, doesn't know what they're doing. This especially comes across as really immature from the one side of the story that we've heard. I'm really disappointed in the adults around him.
That didn't
That
help
did
him
not-
out a little bit here.
That did
Yeah.
not say, hey, there's a way to do this.
Yeah.
There's a way to be. And we were talking about this off air last night a little bit, that I said, this is way more than the Flyers that are going to be turned off by this.
Yep.
There's a lot of organizations that are going to look at that behavior and they're going to say,
Want nothing to do with it. Yep.
it's going to be, if for whatever reason things don't go swimmingly in Anaheim and he's going to get moved at some point, he's going to be a part of whatever he wants out again, whatever it may be. If it doesn't go well there,
You
the
just
number of
narrowed
teams,
that thing down a whole lot.
the number
yeah.
of teams that might be interested in giving him more chances in the future is going to be smaller than before all of this had started coming out.
Yeah. I will say a little bit of a different conversation, a Helleson second-round pick to a 5th overall pick. There's bigger implications there for a hockey team. But couch side, obviously not this black and white, but Team Cutter or Team Flyers?
Go ahead, Meghan. I'm just trying to find out who his agent is.
That's what's interesting is the adults in the situation, because Cutter's on the front lines of this and his career is going to be drastically influenced at 19 years old by this one thing. And it's really tough to see it kick off this way without knowing, maybe it's deservedly so, but there are a lot of other adults beyond the 19-year-old in this situation that could have guided him differently. And the optics of it aren't good. I do think it's funny. The Flyers have been really forthcoming. I think it's an interesting component about where they're headed as a direction that I really appreciate. It obviously benefits both sides, and the Flyers really had no other choice but to do this. So from the business side of it, it makes sense. It's going to be potentially a great fit for Gauthier in Anaheim with Leo Carlsson and McTavish and Zegras, even though he's not having quite the season that I thought that he might. The range of pace and size that Gauthier plays with, and the fact that he does have the versatility, even though the Flyers refer to him as a wing, which I do find really funny, to play center.
Yeah.
It's a great fit for Anaheim and their young forward core. And then Drysdale is a defenseman that's failed to launch because of injury struggles. And so I'm curious to see what they do there. But I think that with some acclimation to the system that Torts coaches, he could fit in there too and be a helpful piece for the future that the Flyers are heading towards. But I'm not going to condemn Gauthier fully, because there are adults ahead of him in the line of succession here that need to answer for this a little sooner. And the Val Nichushkin comparable is interesting because the Avs organization couldn't say much more. Really, it was up to Val Nichushkin to shed light on the situation. And it feels similar here. Yep. Like, Anaheim doesn't necessarily have much to say about this, but Gauthier does. And I hope that his agent helps him to address this at least in some way. It'll probably be vague, and it might even be in a notes app. But I do hope he gets a chance to share his side of things too. Either way, it doesn't look great for him. I hope it's something he can overcome and mature from, because he is still only 19, and hopefully it starts now, because this could really influence the rest of his career.
Are you even a Zoomer if you haven't tweeted out a notes app that's 500 work long? Eric?
Well, I don't like it at all. I got to be honest with you. I haven't been a player. Like, I just feel it's a privilege to be in the National Hockey League. And I played with a guy named Wayne Gretzky, and I go back to him all the time. And I know it's a long time ago. I'm not trying to say that you don't evolve with, but the quality of the person always stays the same. And I don't know him. I'm not saying he's a bad person. I'm saying Wayne's a great person. And when I always told me, like, he could get drafted by Sault Ste. Marie back then in the OHL, and it's a hole in the wall, and he's from right by Toronto and Brantford, and could have easily, so I know over the years he never liked guys manipulating the draft, and he never liked that, because he's like, hey, I went to Sault Ste. Marie, and so in retrospect, like, I think you put a target on your back. It's so, oh my God. We live it this year. Look at Sammy G, like, for example. I'm not saying it's not like that in life, but we're talking about sports. It's a tough grind to play in the National Hockey League. It's tough, not just physically, but it's tough mentally. Now you're putting a target on your back. You are, because, I heard Sanheim yesterday say something about, when we heard he didn't go to development camp last summer, for us, we were like, the hell's wrong with this guy? So right away, and I understand, there's 32 teams and you have a short career. You can pick wherever you want to. That's fine. It's all good. But I don't have to agree with it. If you're asking me the question, I don't agree with it. I think this league is set up where you go and you're picked to go somewhere, and that's where you go. And there'll be a time where you can make decisions to be a free agent. And now it's set up. Guys can, at a pretty young age, be free agents and decide where they go with their career. Or I go back to Dubois, for example. I don't like that. It's twice now, and so I think this guy, you're going to see it again. It's not the first time you see it. You're going to see it again from him. I'm speculating, but I think you got to respect the game and, just go with the flow, and you don't need to put extra pressure on yourself. And that's what you want to do. That's fine. And that's what your representation want to do. Then that's fine. As a manager on the other side, like, I would be ticked off a little bit. I do believe Philly did it the right way. I do believe Philly, and that includes Danny and Jonesy and those guys. I do believe that it's been over a year now. He went to development camp after when
His
Fletcher was there.
Fletcher,
but you got to remember, Danny was there too. Danny was the assistant, right? Fletcher. And obviously, I was going to say Cliff, that's his dad. But anyway, Fletcher gets gassed, and Danny takes over, and then the kid doesn't come last summer, and that's where they lost contact with him. They haven't heard from him since World Championships last year, when apparently they said they didn't want him to come. You want to stay one more year. I don't know. Last I checked, I call him the best player on the planet, Kel McCarr. Didn't really hurt him to go back for a second year in hockey. So for me, it's not the end of the world. If that's what, and you're ticked off about that, maybe there's more we don't know. But somewhere, somehow, Philly? Like, really? No offense to different markets, but you hear guys that are, manipulating the markets. They don't want to go to that place. And
Yeah.
you're talking about Philly, one of the great sports town in the United States. And you talk about Keith Jones and Danny Briere. I'm sorry, but those are two quality people in the NHL. And so I have a hard time with it. I like how they did it. For a year, basically, they didn't say anything. And I believe it. And they said it right out yesterday. We wanted to protect the kid. And I believe it, because I know them both personally. I can tell you that they're not bad people, they're good people. And what if he changes his mind? We don't want him. If Philly's a tough market, if he comes back, and they're going to hold it against him. So I like the way they did it. They said nothing. They went, behind closed doors. They applauded all the other teams, and maybe the Avs were one of those teams, or we don't know, right? But everybody kind of kept it quiet. You're talking about an 18-year-old kid. Like, you know what I mean? Let's not make this out there where all of a sudden he's a villain or whatever it is. Let's protect him. And everybody was on board. And now you go to World Championships, and Gothenburg's a small town, and your representation, or forget about you because you're trying to win a gold medal. I get that. It's a 2-week tournament, but you can't sit. That's why GMs go to those tournaments. That's why presidents go to those tournaments. They make sure they sit with representation. And and those guys. But you can't give those guys 2 minutes or even to get a why. That's fine. If I got no problem. Like Rudo, said it. Like I got no problem with that. If the guy just wants to go somewhere else, that's fine. That's so be it. And it's all different, right? Adam Fox did it. Guys did it. I mean,
yeah.
My God, Newhook did it. I mean, not Newhook. Kerfoot did it here, right? With with Butcher, and I'm okay with that. Jimmy Vesey talked to his dad last week. Great guy. You know what I mean? But here comes a time you got to make a decision. That's fine. But I think there's a way to do it where you have to show respect a little bit to people that have been there before you. And I think Danny and Jonesy have accumulated a lot of respect around the league, over the last 20, 30 years. And I think that's a little weird that you won't give them the time of day. And whatever your answer is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But all of a sudden, they have no choice. No, they're like, okay, we got to get in front of this because this is going to come out now. This is going to get ugly. And then they make the deal that they make. And they seem to be very happy with their deal. It's awesome. I mean, great for them. And then obviously Anaheim seems to be happy with their deal. So that's awesome. I just don't like the non-communication. For me, that's a lack of respect. And that's the part I don't like.
There's a tinge of entitlement in it.
Yep.
And it feels like a clash of the new generation of players coming up and the traditional way of doing things. Like even to hear Sanheim say, you go to development camp. That's just what you do.
That's what you do.
And looking at the rise in players advocating for their wants, needs, and having maybe a little bit more agency, there's lots of benefits to that, of course. I'm an advocate for that too. But this is an extreme case where it's almost as if the player felt entitled to their wants, needs, and approached it in a really avoidant way, which feels like a young thing to do.
Yep.
Like a young person might be avoidant in this situation, and that's where the adults need to help guide them to do it the right way. It's not to say that if Gauthier really didn't want to play in Philadelphia, he couldn't have advocated for himself. But the way he went about it, obviously, is where it feels like there's a tinge of entitlement. And to Eric's point, it feels like there's more to this story. It feels quite personal because I don't see the harm in Philadelphia. It seems like a pretty decent destination. And I know Torts is a polarizing coach, especially with what we've been seeing with Morgan Frost recently. I don't know if that has any influence on it. But to see the Flyers group up close, that group really does love playing for him. I think, inside the locker room, they really do rally around Torts as a coach. So I don't even like that the Kevin Hayes thing took off the way that it did, because I don't think that was even soured to the degree that people are saying it was, and that Hayes, influenced Gauthier to want to defect. I just think that is where, like AJ was talking about, this is spun a little out of control. And
I'll add one more to it. When I've heard it, and we've all heard it about the Lindros thing, right? And people comparing to the Lindros thing. Oh, how ironic is it? The Flyers, Lindros. Here's what I'll say about the Lindros thing, which ended up great for the Avalanche, as we all know now, right? Looking at later on, it's a big reason why the Avs became the Avs 1.0, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, given a lot of ingredients, right, for the recipe. No recipe, but they're the ingredients. So what I'm trying to say about Lindros is, did he piss me off, Lindros, as a player, back then, being from the province of Quebec? I thought it was BS. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it was handled. But we only found out, 20 years later, the real reason why he did it. And he came out with it, and obviously it was all for the reason. And it's not for us to talk about here on this thing because it's not that type of show that we are. But
yeah,
and he had a real reason for it, and I respect. And then nowadays, and Eric Lindros is married to a French Canadian girl, and you guys know I'm not that guy about the French part, but Lindros is married to all those years he got the flack that he didn't like French people and didn't want to be in Quebec, and it had nothing to do with it. He decided to keep it to himself, and he stood by his ground, which that's fine. Looking back at it, there was a reason. I just don't see where there's a reason like that on this one. That's all I'm trying to say. 20 years later, we can talk about it. We'll meet right here for a nice grilled cheese sandwich like we do, and we'll try to find out, was there something? I don't think there'll have been anything like that, of trying to stick to your guns, you know what I mean, so to speak. So that's just what I'm saying about the Lindros comparison.
Well, unfortunately, you cannot bet on which player is going to ghost their next team. But you can bet on hockey when it comes to DraftKings Sportsbook. Go get yourself signed up with DraftKings Sportsbook today. And when you get in on the new action as a new customer with code DNVR at sign up, you bet $5 on any hockey game and you instantly get $200 in bonus bets. If you want some good bets right now, the Avs have not scored less than 4 goals in the year of 2024. You also have not had Georgiev hit the over on saves in the year of 2024. It's been all under. And that's not even saying Georgiev is bad, just that the Avs do not give up very many shots at all.
Wasn't he one save shy last night?
He was, exactly half a save shot.
Nonsense.
So, you got some great options when it comes to hockey over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Of course, you don't have to bet on the Avs. You can bet on any other team in the league. Or if you're a crazy person, you can bet, or I guess you don't have to be a crazy person. Maybe you're not from the U.S., and you can bet on European leagues and things like that. So, get on it with DraftKings Sportsbook. Get in there with that new account and the DNVR code. Put $5 on a hockey game. You get $200 in bonus bets instantly. You can download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now to get in on it with that DNVR code. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are a registered trademark of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved. All right. We are also brought to you by, after all of that, College Invest. Go get yourself a good college education. Don't be like Cutter Gauthier and ignore all of your superiors, but go there and maybe if you don't want to play for your hockey team, stay for a full 4 years. Go get that degree. Do it with College Invest. Unfortunately, not all of us are as good as Cutter Gauthier at hockey, so might be hard to get a scholarship or something like that. And that's why College Invest is important, so you can have a plan and you can be prepared for college in the future for your kids or whoever it is that you might be saving up for. Jump on it. You even get a benefit from a Colorado tax deduction when you do get your College Invest plan rolling. And savings can even be used for things like trade schools and apprenticeships too. So plenty of options from it when you open your account at collegeinvest.org today. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. And I want to take this conversation and kind of backdoor my way into this other conversation as Trevor Zegras did come up. You're looking at an Anaheim forward core now where they maybe have one too many eggs in the basket. AJ wrote a massive piece on the DNVR.com today. Go read it if you want to get a feel for the landscape of the Avs situation when it comes to the trade market in the league right now. Trevor Zegras, one of the names that potentially comes up for the Colorado Avalanche. Let me start here. Is this a real possibility for this season for Colorado, or are we talking about a longer term view for someone like a Zegras if he's potentially on the table?
I think for Zegras, no. Not in season.
Okay.
It is starting to feel like he's the odd man out there.
Yeah.
You know,
For sure.
just restart Leo Carlson and Mason McTavish already 1-2 down the middle.
Yep.
And there's no reason for them to be looking to move either one of those guys. Those
No
are your
shot.
foundational pieces. You keep those guys.
Yep.
What I do think it's kind of funny. Cutter Gauthier leaves Philadelphia and suddenly he's a wing. A year ago, I wonder if you would have asked those guys if they would have said he's definitely a center.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see what position he ends up playing.
A guy they literally sent back to the minors early in his career to go play more center.
Yeah.
Just funny. Anyway.
Yeah, Trevor's. Yeah, I forgot about that with
Yeah.
Zegras. And Zegras at the moment is playing left wing alongside Adam Henrique. So it's not like he got pushed out because Leo Carlson is just like,
I'm just that good.
We just used our second overall pick.
Yeah.
You know, like it's Adam Henrique. Like, no, obviously Adam Henrique's had a great career, but come on. So I would say no for the Avs and Zegras right now. The only way I think that becomes a real conversation is the Ducks win the draft lotto and take Macklin Celebrini.
Sure.
Because if you have Macklin Celebrini, Mason McTavish, and Leo Carlson, now you're going.
You're out of room, bud.
You're like, okay, this will be fun while they're all on their ELCs. We can't pay all these guys.
Yep.
And so that's when the conference, and then Cutter Gauthier is definitely a wing. So that would be a situation where it would be like, okay, now you engage them on which one do you think you might be able to pry out of there. It's probably McTavish because you're looking at Celebrini and Carlson as potentially the really, really high-end guys.
Sure.
And McTavish is the guy that probably has a better chance of being just like an actual 2C.
Lowest ceiling if they actually hit their ceiling.
Exactly. And so that's where, if you're hoping for something crazy, that would be it. Them getting the first pick and getting and taking Celebrini. I would imagine that Paverbeek is not in a hurry to make that deal.
Yeah.
And would prefer to start with Zegras.
Yep. I would guess so.
Especially if they get Celebrini. It feels like, after that, maybe on the draft floor, they give Celebrini the Ducks jersey, and then they're like, yeah, we're done. We're done with the Zegras thing. Then it maybe becomes a higher priority instead of like, we're open to this. And from an Avs perspective, that's probably a Byram conversation where it would be kind of funny for them to go from Jamie Drysdale to Bowen Byram.
Kind of the same guy in a lot of ways.
Pretty similar paths up to this point, outside of Jamie Drysdale doesn't have 20 fantastic games in the postseason in the middle of a Stanley Cup run.
Yeah.
To his name. So that, I think, for the Ducks and Zegras, I think it doesn't make a lot of sense to me in season.
Sure.
It would be more of a summer thing, but also, is Zegras really the kind of guy that you're going to entrust the 2C spot to? Is that the kind of guy you need? Eric's shaking his head no, so we'll get his thoughts on this in a sec. For me, I'm saying I can understand where they would take that chance, and this becomes another reason why it's not an in-season thing. It's especially true if Gabe Landeskog ends up healthy.
Yeah.
Because then you have all these little worker bees in Landeskog, Nichushkin, and Lehkonen. To a lesser extent, Logan O'Connor and Miles Wood and Ross Colton. Also, like in your forward core, we're like, there's a lot of responsible adults. We can live with one of these nonsense kinds of guys. This we can live with this guy that's kind of this high wire act. He's trying to do some silly shit all the time, and might be a little bit more selfish in how he plays the game. You have that already with McKinnon and Rantanen at times, but those are elite players, and you kind of just let them live in their own universe.
Yep.
Trevor Zegras isn't that caliber of player. He could be really, really good, but is he more the Matt Duchene style of player? As like, this guy shouldn't have been your best center.
Sure.
If he's your best center, your team sucks.
Good. Yeah.
And is more of a complimentary guy. If you have all that infrastructure around him, can you survive it? I guess that's my question for Eric, who seems to think this answer is no.
No, I'll jump in before Meghan, but yeah, again, no offense to him or whatever. I just, as a player, if I can compare, let's say, Mason McTavish, another high-end pick, like I take McTavish, but I don't think Verbeek's going to give him to us. And where I think he would give us a Zegras. And you see the difference? And that's, I think that, I don't know how to say it. Like,
I feel like you just summed up why every fantasy trade doesn't work. Because the guy that you want is not for sale.
That's it. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, and you're talking about, what was McTavish? I mean, what pick was he?
Was he fifth, fourth?
I don't know.
Fifth,
I mean,
sixth?
Zegras is what, 11,
Top 10
10?
for sure.
I mean, okay,
Yeah.
so is Zegras, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what is he, 11, 10, I'm trying to show the difference. I just think one is very skilled, and again, I don't know him personally as a person, I'm just going purely hockey. One's a skilled individual, very skilled. I mean, it doesn't get more skilled than that. And by the way, I am not. I am old school. I'm still mad they took out the red line. So it is what it is. But I'm saying I'm able to adapt, and I'm not. And you guys know I'm not that guy. You know what I mean? I'm not. I'm all for skill, and the guys are so much better nowadays than we were, and it's so much faster, and it's so elite, and it's so fun to watch. And I don't care if guys do to Michigan. It doesn't bother me. Like, it does. And to some guys it does. Like, to me it doesn't. What I'm trying to say is more as a game, as a 5-man unit, as 20 guys in the dressing room, I just feel that he's very skilled. I don't know if he knows how to play the game. And I think he's having a hard time with Cronin, that we all know Crow's so, methodical and everything, and teaching you the right one. That he's having a hard time with it. I know he's been injured, and I'm not here to peel his onion, you know what I mean? But if you're asking me, would I do it? Would I like a guy like that? I don't think for me as a 2C for the Avalanche would be an answer. You know what I mean? I don't think it's a fit. We talk about Ryjo all the time. It's not a fit. Ryjo is a good player, and he could be a good player somewhere, but even Tuna to a certain extent, right? We're big fans of Tuna. It just didn't fit. It wasn't a fit here. And sometimes you have to try it to see. But on this case, I don't think I would try it to see if it was a fit, because I think it wouldn't be a fit. And then the price of acquisition would be, significant, right?
Yeah.
Because he's a good player.
It is not like getting Ryan Johansson
that's
for
what I'm
free
trying to
from
say.
the press.
And it's not Tuna.
It's a deep cut.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. So for me, it's to try to see if that's a fit. I wouldn't do it. For those reasons, I don't think it would be a fit. And I'm sure he's a wonderful young man, and I don't know him. But I just think hockey-wise, it's not my thing. I think that there's more out there to explore, like you did on your piece, which was awesome. It's a lot of work, and it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy to write about it, but it's not easy to go and do either.
It's a lot harder for McFarland to do what he's trying to do than what I did.
Trust me, and those guys, C-Mac and the crew, work at this every day. You know what I mean? And it's every day. Try to see how can we make this better, and on a perspective of the team and around the globe, right? From junior kids to free agents and the KHL or whatever it is. The Kovalenko, and how's he going to fit in? And it's a big puzzle, and it's not that easy. But my answer on Zegras would be no. For those reasons.
Meghan, you talked about the Avs locker room. They feel pretty comfortable as a team right now. It sounds like, even with some of the pieces they're missing. In your opinion, how important is it that they solve that 2C spot still?
It's essential. And I would be a no on Zegras for similar reasons. It's a locker room fit. I think that they would lean on the input of players like McKinnon and Rantanen, and that's not to say there's a personal beef between those players and Zegras. I just don't think they would see the cultural fit. And I look at what Cronin said when he essentially inherited Zegras as a player, that he needed to teach him defense. And this is something Cronin has said about established players in the league. There's just sometimes a part of their game that they never had to learn, that they have to start from scratch. And I would be more encouraged by Zegras at least a year under Cronin, because I think those teachings would really implement important habits. But I look at even the fit of Jonathan Drouin, who is an established NHL player who has played for a few different organizations now and has been given a lot of responsibility. Even just at wing, had to embrace the two-way game just to fit in Colorado.
Yep.
And I think that he's a mature player, an adult, if you will, that was able to embrace the two-way game, and that's why he's had some success in Colorado. That would be my fear with Zegras, especially with the defensive responsibilities that come with 2C. I don't know if he could hang with the adults. I think that he could try, but I just don't know that he would have it in him to fit what the Avs would need from him at both ends of the ice. And I think the skill upside is so much fun, but what they need there is not what Ryan Johansson brings. They need a little bit more skill upside. The speed needs to be a better fit.
Yep.
And it's just a different type of player than Zegras, but it's also a need that hasn't been met with this current Avs group that I think they're crying out for. I love Logan O'Connor, but he shouldn't necessarily be playing a second line role. I think that
Nope.
the way the team is currently constructed is in response to Ryan Johansson not working out as their second line centerman. And I'd rather see them have the flexibility to make fun decisions with the forward group and not desperate decisions.
Sure. Love the answer.
It's part of the. They could also just call up Crow and be like,
What's up, dog?
"Sup with this?"
What's the real deal?
Yeah, and if they make that move, then you can feel pretty confident that Crow signed off and was
There was
like,
a vouch,
"He's going to be
yeah.
okay."
I believe that. I would
And-
trust that.
If they don't, doesn't mean they call him up or not. They just maybe weren't interested. But it also drives home that in season it doesn't make a lot of sense because you're not going to take that guy off Anaheim's left wing and drop him into your center spot and be like, all right, you've got 20 games
Figure it out, bud.
to try and figure this before we go on a Stanley Cup run. I hope that you get it.
I hope it works.
Yeah, like and when you use Jonathan, you bring up Jonathan Durant. That guy, it took a lot of humility that he had to go through.
Scored 1 point in 10 games to start this season.
Well, and I mean in his career to get to
different part
even,
of his
even
career.
before the end,
point.
sure.
to get to the point where he was willing to be like, I am going to make less than $1 million because I am valuing opportunity and a fit and all these other things. And Trevor Zegras not at that point in his career right now.
No.
So he may not, and this isn't, I don't know this. I'm just saying it took a lot for Jonathan Durant to get there. It took a lot for Alex Galchenyuk to get there, who I know that's Crow said that about his game last year, rebuilding his defensive game from the ground up. It took a lot to get there, and Trevor Zegras hasn't gone through any of that yet. He may not just be there. He could be fully capable of it. We don't know. You don't trade what it will cost to get Trevor Zegras and just hope that you find out midseason and just that it...
Yeah.
Well, this could be fun. Yeah, this could also sink you.
Yep.
If you want to figure out more potential options from the Avs, ranging from Morgan Frost to Elias Lindholm, go read AJ's piece over on the DNVR.com. He covers every team in the NHL that the Avs could potentially trade with in that thing. So
It was fun to... I was like counting them down in my brain. I was like, there's 12, there's 15. Oh, there's the Islander, that's 16. I'm like, all right, this is getting a lot.
we're getting there,
Yeah. And I got to the end, I was like, there's only 31. It took me a second.
because the Avs are
Yeah,
32.
because I was like, right, the Avs aren't going to trade Ryan Johansson for Ryan Johansson.
AJ.
Be an all-timer trade right there.
I do talk about Adam Henrique quite a bit, though.
I don't hate that.
A lot of options, and I'm sure you'll hear a lot more from us about potential trade deadline stuff. It's still a little early, probably more around February. We'll really start ramping up the trade deadline.
We say that and we talk about it like every third show.
It's because it's what the chat wants, man.
Understandably so, but part of it is also because Ryan Johansson's game just has not done anything. Ross Colton continues to be hurt. And it's just like, what do you talk about every day?
Best I can do is $7 for a snarf sandwich.
Yum.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good deal, right?
So hungry right now. It sounds so good, man.
That's wrong.
Go get yourself some Snarfs if you're like half of our beat and forget to eat breakfast. Snarfs has you covered. A bunch of different locations here in Colorado. Delicious sandwiches no matter what you're into. If you like a simple plain ham and cheese, they got you covered with that. If you like a fancy, complicated, all the toppings, all the fixings, all the meats, they got that too.
Yeah.
So Snarfs covers you top to bottom, whatever it is you might need, even if it's burgers. They have 3 Snarf burger locations. So if you want a lunch burger, they got that too. Hit them up. Get yourself some delicious Snarfs today. And once you got your Snarfs, make sure you're eating it under a sound roof. Go to Red Hawk Roofing to get your roof inspected. They do free inspections. They'll come out, get onto your roof, take pictures, come back, show you everything going on up there. Most of the time, it's probably fine. You'll probably be all right. And it costs you nothing to get it inspected. But if there is something wrong, they'll let you know. You can go to redhawkroofing.com to get a hold of them, and they'll fix it up for you. Even if you haven't gotten your inspection, they have 24/7 on-call people. So if you spring a leak in the middle of the night or something, you can give them a call. They'll come out. They'll patch it up for you. Whatever it is, they'll take care of your roof here in Colorado. And they're local, too. So support local like us with Red Hawk Roofing. Get over to redhawkroofing.com. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Another happenstance of the NHL that probably does affect the Avs down the line to some extent. Willie Nylander signing his contract for $11.5 million per for 8 years with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Before we get to the Avs stuff, let's start with the Leafs side of this conversation. The Leafs now, next year, will be paying their top 4 forwards north of $46 million. Over half the salary cap on 4 players. Not to say that other teams aren't that far behind. The Avs next year will be paying, I believe it's about $37 million to their top 4 players. One of them is a defenseman in Cale Makar. But a significant chunk of change as well. Just not the scary over half your salary cap number. My question is, can you build championship teams paying this many guys this much like Toronto is doing?
I mean, I think time will tell, right? I mean, so far they haven't been able to fix the goaltending problem, right? You know, and I think it's been very glaring. Is Martin Jones we all know Wall's a guy, but I don't know. Never done it. So who knows? But Hill had never done it last year either. You're going to say, I get that. I don't know. I mean, does that work? I mean, Edmonton's kind of built that way a little bit too. Does that work? I don't know. It hasn't worked, right, to this day. It is a copycat league until somebody does it. Maybe they'll start putting money into their top 4 players. But like you said, I think you said one thing that was very important right there. The Avs is, $37 million, whatever next year, but there's a D in there, so there's a big difference.
Sure.
That makes a huge difference. And not only is it D, he's the best player on the planet. So, I mean, time will tell on those things. What would I do it? I don't know. Thinking the Leafs and the situation they're in, do you let them walk? I mean, what do you do? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like,
damned either way, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, right? I mean, think about that. If they trade William Nylander, another leading scorer, or they should have tried last summer. I'm sure they tried. And next thing you know, he bet on himself.
Yeah.
You have to tip your cap, to a guy that bets on himself. Some guys bet on themselves and it doesn't work. Thomas Tatar, on a very small scale, bet on himself, didn't work.
Yep.
I'm coming to the Avs and I'm gonna, right? I mean,
Jonathan Drouin's betting on himself, and it's working.
That's right. Everybody's different. I played with a guy named freaking Yari Curry, one of the best right wingers in the NHL. Was scoring 70 goals a year. Look it up on those stats, and he was on 1-year deals every year. 1-year deals because he was like, I'm not taking that 5-year, 6-year deal or whatever. Where Grant Fuhrer did, you know what I mean? And then he's like, oh my God, I got screwed, And I'm not saying Furzy, I love him. I'm not saying that was a bad decision. I'm saying everybody's different. Everybody deals with it differently. Everybody's makeup is different to be able to handle situations. Nylander, you gotta tip it. I mean, oh my God, this guy is just having the season of his life, and it's awesome. And now it's a few $1 million more than probably you thought you were going to be able to get him at. But if you don't sign him, you're a moron. You sign him, you're a moron because it's too much. So it's like, where is it? I don't know, but I think time will tell. Are they able to go forward with that core that's won one playoff round in so many years, right? I don't know, Do I think things will change? From what I've seen this year, I don't know, it looks a little bit the same, right?
They're the same team.
And I wish them well because, especially Brad is a good friend of mine, but that's not what I'm saying. But I just feel that, I don't know, until I see it, like I haven't seen it, so. But good on him, though. Bet on himself and got the money, I mean. And you gotta remember, people say, yeah, but Matthew Tkachuk in Florida, no state tax, makes more money in here. I mean, I get that. But at the end of the day, it's a copycat league about the numbers, and he's at 11.5. That's where he's at.
It's a lot of money.
I just think it's a lot. Whatever,
It's not a few bucks.
Yeah, I don't believe that, and it's because of past results. Like, we talk about players who have the championship mentality and players who've made it across the finish line, and I still don't think Toronto has enough of that. And now they're handcuffed to really expensive contracts. Their ability to bring in players like that is more limited than ever.
Yep.
And I think it's a necessary component for teams to have deep playoff runs. And I just am not a believer presently. Same situation for Edmonton, very similar. Even Calgary has sort of handcuffed themselves to expensive contracts.
Yep.
It's just, and every team's going to spend their money somewhere. Like I look at Boston even last night, spending a lot of money in their goaltending, and it can be a strength and a challenge for that team. The Avs find savings each year in interesting places that I still think they're going to manage to. Like, I don't know what Drouin's future is in Colorado. You know, is it a one-season thing, and does he maybe see value past this season? But if they can find players that hit quite like that, because they took some swings in this offseason. Not all of them are huge swings for the fences, but a few of them hit true. At least, all right, maybe that's premature, but I think we feel pretty good about what Ross Colton is and Miles Wood and Jonathan Drouin. To a different extent, Freddie Olofsson. I mean, even Kiviranta for what he is and what he's doing right now.
Sure.
Those are kind of hits. Like, all right, Johansson didn't pan out. Tatar didn't pan out. I think the number of hits compared to the misses is high enough. I have faith in the Avs front office to be able to manage then extensions for players like Makar and Rantanen when the time comes. I even think the Devon Toews extension was expertly done. I think it came in, it's not a small price tag, but I think it came in at a number that was a little lower than even I was expecting. Yep. So I think they continue to find savings in an impressive way that I have faith the Avs will work around this because I think that some of these other teams like the Torontos are cautionary tales.
Well, and here's the difference for me. Yeah, in a couple of years, the Avs are going to have to pay Mikko and Kale the big bucks.
Yeah.
But they already won one. There's already a cup backing that conversation in those contracts.
There you go.
Yep.
Leafs don't have that. Edmonton doesn't have that.
That's what I always go back to,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, that's a huge argument there.
With that being said,
I also think that you're just talking about how to build a roster and how not to.
Yep.
Because you look at those four guys in Toronto that they've built around, they spent the money on, JT's number will come down when he, for sure, is on his next deal.
Yep.
But Marner's is going to go up. Mm-hmm. And they just guaranteed that Marner's is going to go way up by giving Nylander the deal that they just did.
Yep.
So now it's like, okay, I understand you got to keep your guys, but you're now going to be paying your third best forward $11.5 million. At any point, no matter what Mikko Rantanen's next deal ends up being, at any point, Colorado's third best forward in the next several years won't make more than Gabe Landeskog's $7 million. So you're just talking about how to build a roster, and Eric says it's a copycat league. Yeah, if a team could just copy and paste Cale Makar, they would. But the Avs have that.
Yep.
And they realize that, and re-signing Taves is understanding that roster balance is huge.
Yep.
You need a top defense pairing to go along with it. You look at all the teams that are winning Stanley Cups over the last several years. What is the common thread of all of them? You have center depth. You've got a true blue 1C. You've got a really good 1C, or in St. Louis's case, a 1C having the best season of his life. Like a low end 1C that just goes bananas for you. Perfect. All those other teams have top defensemen. You look at Alex Pietrangelo,
Yep.
Blues and Vegas.
Yeah.
That's a top defenseman. The Avs with Cale Makar. Tampa Bay with Victor Hedman.
Yep.
You're talking, there's balance there.
Well,
Not everybody has an Andrei Vasilevsky back there like Tampa Bay did, but where the Avs have been able to get by is they save money. Where Vegas got by is they save money at that position and they allocate it to being hard to play against at all levels in front of that guy. Make that guy's job as easy as possible and just hope that you get it right in net. At some point, you just have to hope. And right now, Toronto's plan, and giving Nylander this deal, Toronto's plan is we have to hope that we get our bottom six right, which they haven't ever done. We have to hope that we get our entire defense right, which they haven't ever done. And we have to hope that we've gotten goaltending right, which they haven't ever done.
to even back up your point on balance, take a look at someone like the St. Louis Blues, who in that cup run, they had Alex Pietrangelo at the top, and then in a secondary role behind him, you have a Colton Parayko, who played so well in that role that St. Louis thought he could just replace Pietrangelo.
Right.
And then you experience that, and you're like, oh, we were wrong.
But you also look at their depth as a team at forward that year.
Yep.
And you go down the lineup, and you're like, this 1 through 9 for sure is really good.
Yep.
1 through 12 is miserable. But the defense is solid, and they got wonderful goaltending. None of that happens without wonderful goaltending.
Yep.
And so you need, winning a Stanley Cup's really, really hard. You need all these things to go right for you, and you need to just get lucky along the way, stay healthy enough, get the right matchups, get a couple of bounces along the way, blah, 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 blah. It's really, really, really hard. So you can control what you can control. And right now, what the Maple Leafs did is they just said, well, this guy's one of our best players, and he's having an amazing year. We can't just let him walk. A completely understandable approach. But the way that you have spent the money to build that roster almost ensures that you're behind the 8 ball every single year.
Yep.
It's going to be really, really hard for them. In the same way that it is going to be really hard for the Avs.
Yep.
Because this makes sure Mikko Rantanen's next contract
He's seeing dollar signs right now.
It starts with a 12.
Yep.
12. It can't. It's not going to be 11.6. He's been a far more productive player than William Nylander and a far more accomplished player. He's been one of the best postseason players in NHL history to date so far in his career. Gets overlooked because McKinnon and Makar exist, but he has been. He's been a top 10 postseason player ever
In points per game. Yeah.
so far in his career. And he's won a Stanley Cup. I don't know how you would love to say he's not going to get McKinnon's money at 12.6. There's not a lot of wiggle room between 11.5 and 12.6. And with the cap doing what the cap's about to do, Mikko Rantanen might be like, are you for real? No. I want 13. I want 14. And if that happens, then Kale's going to get 16. You know, and 2022 is going to be a lot of fun. I hope we remembered it well. So, like, Rantanen, the Avs have an elite center, an elite defenseman, and an elite wing. You can build around that for a long, long, long time.
Yep.
Toronto just paid a huge amount of money for their third best forward.
And everybody conducts.
2 of which are wings, by the way. 2 of which are wings.
Yeah.
It's not even center depth. 2 of those guys are wings. Ooh, it's a challenge.
I mean, you conduct your own business, right, as an organization, and you do what's best for you, right? But all I'm saying is, not pointing fingers, but C-Mac yesterday sees that deal, and he's like, oh, God, it just got tougher. You know what I mean? And that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to do what you have to do, but people and agents are always going to look over the fence and compare, right? That's what this business is built on. It's comparables. And they'll just look over the fence and say, well, he got that. You know, what's my guy going to get?
It's exactly what just happened with JT Compher in free agency.
That's it.
Is Mikko worth every penny?
I love him. So, I mean,
I do love him. And he does strike me as the
days.
player that wouldn't leave a lot of money on the table.
Yeah.
I think he's a good guy. Heart of gold.
He's held out once already. in his
Yeah,
career.
so I just don't know if he'll leave a ton of money on the table.
Yeah. Not banking on it, for sure. Literally banking with that amount of money.
yeah.
He's worth it.
Okay. I think he's probably worth it, but you never know. We'll cross that bridge when we get there as far as the Avs are concerned.
Who else can bunt like that? Nobody. The best bunter in the league. We came up with that term. The bunt.
He's
I
got-
like that.
not
And
the
that was a
chip
fun
shot.
that was a fun goal.
Yeah.
That was a
Bunt.
bunt.
We have the sandwich and the bunt. All right.
Yeah.
2 different.
Does Mikko even like playing hockey? Is he just playing the
He just
wrong
plays
sport?
other sports.
Yeah.
Playing,
He plays other sports while he plays hockey.
You can start playing highlight.
Now you just
Remember
gotta give him all the
highlight
money.
back then?
Yeah.
Hawaii is great.
Florida. That's fun.
Now he needs to score in Michigan, and we can say he plays lacrosse too.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
He has that in him, I think.
Can you
Let's
imagine him
go.
do a Michigan?
Laxbro
I would
Mikko.
die. I would die.
That's all I really had for today, unless you guys wanted to touch on any other topics. No?
What did you think of Jason Poland's NHL debut?
That he should have gotten more minutes?
I didn't,
Which
you know,
one? Oh, yeah.
I'm reflecting on a world where the Kauts and the Maltsevs played for the Avs and you didn't see any impact. And in the very limited time that Jason Pullen played, he made sure at least to make an impact. And it just feels like a totally new chapter in terms of what I've seen from call-ups, generally speaking, this season. I think that a lot of players have bought into what they need to be doing, and maybe it's because those other players, they saw how limited that leash was and how limited the opportunity was if they didn't make an impact every shift. But for as small as it was, I thought it was a decent showing from Pullen.
They spent every shift in the offensive zone burying pucks deep. I don't know what more you can ask out of that line.
Yeah, I was happy to see it.
You got to go with the mentality that you might never get a shift again in the National Hockey League. So you take your nap, you eat a tiger steak, and you're ready to go. Like, rah, I'm going to eat the boards.
What is a tiger steak?
I don't know. That's what I tell kids all the time. Eat a tiger steak.
It's made up.
I didn't know.
It's made up.
Okay.
It's like,
You eat a tiger steak.
you just want to eat the boards when you get out there. Go. Just makes your body go,
Got it. Is it like literally a tiger
Yeah,
steak?
tiger
Is that
steak.
the implication?
just eat
It
tiger.
makes you into a tiger?
Yes. Eat tiger.
Now we're talking. What's the name of that?
No,
Animorphs.
we're not doing.
Animorphs.
We got to get
Yeah.
out of here. We're not doing this.
All right. Before we do get out of here, though, go to foco.com, get yourself some Avalanche merch or any other Colorado sports team merch. Officially licensed apparel, bobbleheads, Crocs, pins, blankets, you name it. They've got it all over at Foco. Across all 50 states, too. You don't have to be an Avs fan. I know we have some other sports team fans in here. You can get your stuff at Foco as well. Use code DNVR10 to get 10% off your order with Foco.com. The Nuggets are going to kill me if I keep this show going any longer. So we appreciate. Now we're doing it tomorrow. We appreciate you a bunch, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.